Hello and welcome everybody to Health.Beauty.Hope. I am back for the second week of our relaunch. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Such a great response from our show last week. It was amazing. We had a great guest on last week, great topic starter. It was so good to be able to talk about anxiety and kind of get that out there and have a conversation about it. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to listen in, give your feedback, leave your comments. Very cool. So this week, I am really, really excited because we have a really good show planned for you. I'm actually doing a show today and tomorrow, which is Saturday and Sunday. Today's show is going to be a very big and important topic, something that I see discussed a lot and spoken about a lot. So I am really happy to be able to kind of touch on this subject with you with such a great guest. So I'm going to bring a guest on in just one moment. Her name is Sheri Brooks. And the show is going to be entitled The Other Battle. And so we'll talk a little bit about autoimmune diseases and how people who are suffering from those have to kind of come back and fight with depression as well. It's not discussed often that when people have, depression and also they're fighting these diseases and these illnesses, and it's kind of brushed under the rug a little bit, the other side of that, of being sick and what it does to you mentally. So I'm going to bring on Sheri right now. Just give me one moment here. And hello, Sheri.
Hi, Brandy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Losing my voice a bit, everybody, so I'm sorry. But I'm here. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being on. We're really excited to have you on today. So, Sheri, you're Sheri Brooks. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where are you from? Just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from Michigan originally. I moved out to Arizona. Moved out there, believe it or not, because I love the warm weather, and it was just better for me. Mm-hmm. But we came back because of my husband's job. So he wanted to come back to Michigan. So we're here in the cold. But pretty much I am a filmmaker, I'm an author, and a playwright. I left corporate America, and I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I left there because of my illness. And so, but before corporate, I was making films, and now I am assisting others, and I hold an international film festival each year here in Michigan, and it is called Glory Reel's Christian Film Festival and Writers Lab. And so we just kind of teach writing and filmmaking, and we give artists an opportunity to network with one another. And in addition to that, I write. So I have a lot of things that I do. I don't have any kids, and so I don't have a mommy schedule. So I'm kind of able to just do the things that I love to do.
Yeah.
And not really have a time restriction, so to speak. But that's about it.
Well, it seems like you do a lot. That's great. It's always important to keep busy, especially when you have a passion for doing so many different things. One of the things that you had mentioned when I had previously spoken with you, you said that you are a kingdom strategist. So could you kind of emphasize on that a little bit? What's a kingdom strategist?
Yes. Kingdom strategist. That is a name that I have been using for years now. And during this time, right now, it's so commonplace to hear people attaching strategist to their name. You hear brand strategist, marketing strategist, and it's all wonderful. I actually have a conference, the Strategic Women's Summit, and we bring these kind of people together. But for me, what it is, I am a person who plans, and I plan for the kingdom. So I bring what you might call a balance between the ministry and the working world. I bring those two parts together to create a balance for my clients who are either in the church or in the business world, and they want to be able to do both. A lot of times people operate in the kingdom world, they operate in the church or the ministry, and they don't realize that there's a business aspect to it. And
Right.
so what I do is kind of help clarify how this operates, kind of a faith-based business consultant, if you will.
Gotcha.
So I consult with different churches and just kind of help them create their business plan, business modules, so that they can run churches or ministries effectively from the business aspect, and you don't get lost in just doing ministry.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. Something I haven't heard of before, so I had to kind of touch on that to see, exactly what that was. So, what's the passion behind what you do? What is the passion behind you, being a kingdom? I mean, I guess you kind of just touched on it a little bit, but what made you decide to kind of forge that bridge between the two?
Well, I am a creative. I love creating, and so being a playwright, being a writer, that storytelling takes you into another world. You're always in another place, and I really love to see what God's people can do if they put their creative minds to work. And so a part of that is you're reaching out to these different groups, different areas. You have different age groups. You have different mindsets in people. And so one of the ways to be able to reach people is through the dramatic arts ministry, or through drama, through reading. There's more to a church than singing. And so I just get excited when it comes to that. So I love to see how, the church can, a lot of times we think church is so stuffy, or people that operate or work in ministry are really, just these really tight and upstanding people. And it's not necessarily that way. And so you take all these different things and you can create something, and you can reach so many different people. Some people love the movies. Some people like to read. Some enjoy a stage play. So there's just so many things. And I just, as an artist, I just love to be creative. So
Right. Wow, that's interesting. So today's show, we are talking about what I titled it "The Other Battle." So we're talking today about autoimmune diseases, disorders, and kind of how people who suffer from these ailments, they battle depression and they battle all these other mental health issues that come along with it. So could you let our viewers know exactly what is an autoimmune disease?
Well, simply put, an autoimmune disease is a disorder where your body is attacking its own healthy cells. And so depending on which one, or because there are so many, but depending on which AID you're operating under, you can be attacked in specific organs. Autoimmune diseases attack your body, attacks itself. And so you have several autoimmune diseases like lupus. You hear a lot about lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, vasculitis, multiple sclerosis, and we're just now hearing about celiac disease and Sjogren's syndrome, which have been around, but there wasn't a lot of information out for these particular things. And so basically that's it. Your body turns against you because it doesn't recognize its own cells.
Okay, and is this something that you've experienced firsthand with these disorders? Okay. Tell us a little about that.
Unfortunately, yes. most of the girls in my family have lupus. I, unfortunately, was diagnosed with Sjogren's syndrome, and it's called Sjogren's primary because it was the only thing that I had at the time. Often what happens with autoimmune diseases, you can be taking medicine or the disease itself can activate something else. And so it's kind of like a tree. So I started off with just Sjogren's, but it turned into several branches. Rheumatoid arthritis, celiac disease, vasculitis, and here recently, kidneys, nephritis. It was lupus nephritis, which means that lupus attacked my kidneys. And so with Sjogren's syndrome, it is one of, I would like to say, the worst autoimmune diseases around because every single organ of your body is affected. Today, people think that Sjogren's syndrome is simply dry mouth, dry eyes, dry nose. And that couldn't be further from the truth. That's on the basic end of the scale. They're just indicators that something's wrong. It goes all the way in into your lungs, your stomach, your skin, your eye, all kinds of things happen. And so these are the things I'm dealing with. And the celiac disease, I know we hear a lot of people talking about gluten-free food, a gluten-free diet, and I think people are operating like it is the newest fad, the newest diet craze, and that's not the case. You know, people don't realize that there are a lot of nutrients that your body actually needs, and if you utilize gluten-free products, you're not getting to your body what it actually needs to function. So it's being depleted of these things, and there's no need to do that. However, there are those of us who can't have these things, and so we have to have the gluten-free, and then we have to, or I have to make sure that I am finding those nutrients in other items, you know, different vegetables and fruits and things like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think is, you know, you're hearing about these autoimmune disorders and diseases popping up. What do you think is the cause behind it being, I mean, I don't know if it's just, is it that we just didn't hear about them before, or is it just more prevalent? What do you think is causing it to happen so much now, and there's so many cases, especially with women? What do you think is causing this?
I think that it is more prevalent now because of our environment, the way that we have changed how we make food. And, you know, we've gotten away from natural or simply making things, having things processed at the manufacturer. Now, in order to make more money, we have to make more food, and we have to make it quicker. And so food is being genetically made, so you're not getting real food in most cases. And that has a lot to do, our environment has a lot to do with what's happening to people now and why you're hearing so many people, you know, having these issues. Now, genetics plays a role in it as well. There's a gene, and in my family, it comes from the maternal side, and so it's only the women in that line that have had these issues or had to deal with these diseases. Genetics plays a role. The environment plays a role. Different exposures, like there are people who, I would say, lived near factories back in the day, like during my grandparents' time. you didn't think much about it, but if you lived near certain factories or near water, this in different areas as well, then you're more, I think they were more susceptible then.
Right.
And so now here they're coming, they've lived 75, 80 years, and now they're being told they have cancer or lupus or this or that. And it is, just simply from these things. And then I think diet plays a big role in it.
Yes.
You're eating certain foods, which certainly has an effect. Like this big deal with peanut butter now, and even with the gluten.
What's going on with peanut butter? I missed that memo.
Well, with the peanut butter, there's all these peanut allergies.
Oh, okay.
And now they're doing all these tests, and now they have something they say they're using to help children get acclimated to peanut butter so they won't have these peanut allergies. I don't know how that works, but this is what we're doing. And you have so many doctors experimenting, and then you have a lot of doctors that just write prescriptions. Well, this is what we have heard that works, or this is what we think works.
Right.
You really have to get out and do the homework yourself.
Do your research to see what's really going on. Yes, for sure. So obviously with an autoimmune disease, you're battling that. It's stifling your life. It's really preventing you from doing a lot of things that you normally would be able to do. So with that, of course, is going to come, some depression, some feeling of inadequacy. So what are some ways that people who battle, who are battling depression due to these diseases, what are some ways that they can kind of fight that and come back from that? What are some ways that they can cope with that?
Well, for me, prayer is my go-to. Prayer and support. You really need someone that understands. And like I mentioned before, depression is a monster on its own. It's a really bad, real dangerous thing to have to deal with because it can shut you down. Causes you to think. We see people sometimes and we go, oh my goodness, they're bipolar, or oh, there's something wrong, they're always angry, and that's not the case. A lot of times anger is the first thing. Anger and irritability, those are the first things that pop up when a person is depressed or going into a depression. And so I would say, get a support system, support group outside of your home, because your family may not understand all of the dynamics or all of the mood changes. And then, too, it depends. It can become a burden on some people. And so you want to be surrounded by people who have gone through it or are going through it and understand exactly where you are and can encourage you, or, just there are so many groups out here. And even if I know when I was first diagnosed with Sjogren's, I felt lonely at first. I felt sad and I felt lonely because I didn't know what it was. I had never heard of it, but I had researched cottonmouth, and that's how I found out about Sjogren's. And then a few years later, I was actually diagnosed with it. And so I know people think that it's taboo, but if you can see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, it really does wonders, because you have someone who is unbiased. They won't form an opinion of you. They won't look at you funny. they will talk to you and help you understand what it is you're going through. Because there are several types of depression. And one of them comes from being ill. There's a depression that people go through, and it stays with them.
Right.
There's a depression.
Especially feeling so helpless.
Yeah. Yes. And then you have chronic depression, which may last a year or two, and then it goes away. You have seasonal depression, which comes with dark and gloomy weather, and just different things,
right.
Stress-related things. There was a point when I started getting all these other things. After I thought I was managing Sjogren's, all these other things started happening to me, and different things started popping up, and that put me in a really dark place, and I went to seek help. And so I learned how to manage. I learned to manage my medical team. And, you just have to be educated, and you have to keep your doctors educated.
Right.
And that helps you deal with that depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's going on. They know what's going on, and they know, they have to help you. They can't pass you off.
You bring up the point of going to your doctors and seeking help. I have a question for you. So do you feel, I know oftentimes when you are fighting depression or any kind of mental disruption, you're prescribed medications to deal with that. Do you think that often with like depression and anxiety medications, sometimes they aid in the deterioration of a person that's having these health problems? Do you think they contribute to the issue physically?
Yes, absolutely. The disease itself isn't always the culprit.
Mm-hmm.
Often different medications can trigger other diseases, but medications can also cause that thing called a chemical imbalance, or maybe a person already has a chemical imbalance, and that's why they're heading into this depression. Medications change the dynamics. And so here, you think you're taking medicine for one thing, and you don't know why, but you're just feeling hopeless. I try myself to stay away from medications. Like I have several, but I decided that was just so much poison. And you have to determine for yourself if it would be life-threatening to stop, or if you can, do something, just take a more natural route, because different medications will bring on depression.
Right.
I know there are medications that are supposed to fight depression,
mm-hmm.
but if you look at the different medications and the ingredients, you're prescribed one particular pill for, say, nerve damage, but that same pill is prescribed for someone going crazy or someone in depression. And you've seen the commercial that says depression hurts. If you look at a lot of the medications are pain pills, but they're prescribed for depression.
Right. So it's just really important to have those conversations with your provider to make sure they're balancing and you're not just getting something for a quick fix, Because, I'm not one that's opposed to people taking medication for, any kind of issues they're having, because, obviously your provider, your doctor's going to know best, but it's just important to have that conversation to make sure they're giving you what's needed for your ailment.
Yes.
So what are ways that entrepreneurs in particular, people who own their businesses, who are, building a business, what are some ways that these people can still keep their businesses going while they're being treated for illnesses? Or do you think they should take time off? Or do you think that this is a time where you should just rest and not do anything? What are your ideas about that? What can they do to be able to still, generate income, make money, build their business while not pushing themselves over the edge from their ailments or sickness?
Well, I think that in the looking at whether you should take that time off or continue to work and figure out a way to handle or deal with your medications and the illness you're having problems with. I think in terms of myself, I say both, because I was a high-functioning person, and I dance in a dance group. I'm working in corporate America. I'm running a business. And as a creator, I'm also helping others. So I'm writing plays. I'm teaching acting classes. And there comes a certain time, especially with Sjogren's, when you have to sit down. So what I say to people is that we have to learn how to slow down. We have to learn how to delegate. And then sometimes you may have to let some things go. And I know this recent bout lasted for over a year. And so it caused me to lose a lot of business and a lot of clients. But the one piece of advice I can give for that is to make sure you have savings, multiple streams of income, so that if you lose your job or if you have to leave your job permanently, you still have income, but you can still function. Because say you lose your job, that's a stress thing right there. That's stress button number one. So you're worried about finances, you're going to increase what's happening in your body as far as your disease goes, which is also going to affect if you're depressed or not. So it's just a giant ball that it turns into the snowballs. So I say just learn how to manage everything. I say that it's very crucial to take time off and get educated on your illness, become familiar with how your body is functioning. I know if one thing happens to me, I know that normally it lasts 2 months, and then when it starts to go down and go away, there's another thing that's going to happen, and that lasts for 2 weeks. I know how to manage my body because I've learned to, I keep a diary. I track all these things. And so you have to do that. And I think it's important, too, for people to say, hey, can I take this time off of work? I need to take this time and let my body rest and adjust to what I'm going to have to live. You have to make lifestyle changes.
So just kind of like a happy medium between the two of continuing your business and making sure that, you're not giving up, but also finding that balance between that and then just taking time to not trigger flare-ups by pushing yourself too much.
Yes.
Right.
Control yourself. Yeah, you do have to have a balance. It's important.
Right. Wow. So many people struggle, and I think everyone kind of has their own way of dealing with things, but I think it's a conversation a lot of people don't really talk about because, when entrepreneurs are all different kinds of people from all over the world that deal with different things. And, it's hard enough just trying to build something on your own, but then, throw into the mix being sick, and not being able to be at your full potential. So it's good to have that advice and know that you should just keep powering on and just find that happy medium, that balance between the two. So I know you mentioned a couple of things in the beginning of the interview. You want to mention again any kind of projects or workshops you have coming up?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for asking. I do. I'm going to be teaching a Writing Well intensive this October, and I also have, we've got the film festival coming up, Glory Rose Christian Film Festival and Writers Lab, and that's November 8th and 9th here in Michigan. And then the Strategic Woman Summit is in February 2020. So There are a lot of things happening.
Awesome.
Just great things, especially for those that are into the arts, into the creatives, and then wanting to take their business to another level. Just learning to move strategically so that, they can be successful in their endeavors in case they get sick.
Right.
So we got a lot of things coming up.
That's fantastic. And how can our listeners, find you? What's your social media? How can they get a hold of you to see more about your projects, to follow your journey for inspiration? How can they do that?
Well, on Instagram, we're under Strategic Woman Summit. On Facebook, it's a Facebook group, Glory Reels, Christian Film Fest, and they can also go to the Glory Reels website, which is GLORYREELZ.com. And Twitter, we are Hershine LLC. So we're all over the place.
All over the place.
You can hit those spots and find any of us. Yeah.
Awesomeness. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and, sharing your story with us and sharing your advice. I know there's always people looking, for inspiration and encouragement from people who are also dealing with the same things as them. There's a lot of, as you said, a lot of misinformation out there about autoimmune disorders, diseases. So it's good to have someone come on and bless us with that information and that insight. So thank you again for coming on.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I have enjoyed my time.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll have you back on in the future to talk about some other things. That'd be great.
Yes. All right.
Everyone else, thank you guys so much for listening, for tuning into this show. You guys are amazing. I love, all the feedback that I'm getting. I will actually be airing another episode tomorrow. We'll be talking with Leslie Gaudet again about mental clutter and how you can kind of get rid of all that. You guys, just make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel below. We're going to premiere these on YouTube, and if you want to download the podcast directly, there will be a link to download the podcast. But I'm loving how this is growing, and I'm loving this balance that I'm creating with all of you amazing women and people who listen and who just want to find that balance in their lives. So thank you guys for tuning in. And again, thank you so much, Sheri, for sharing your insight and coming on today, okay?
Absolutely. God bless you.
Thank you. Bless you
all right,
too.
Bye-bye.